Heather at Adventures in Gardening, and today we're going to be doing some propagation by taking cuttings from some petunias that I accidentally overwintered. Well, not really accidentally. I took a chance on them. I'm standing in my greenhouse that I do not heat during the winter, and I have a minimum maximum thermometer that I track to see how cold it gets, and we got down to 23 degrees. But at the same time, even though I know it's going to get that cold, there's so many plants left over at the end of the season that I just take a chance. I have frost blankets that I use. I try to use the heat from the flooring to try to just get things through the worst of the winter. I do apply heat in here and come March when the tomatoes and peppers come on out, but not during the winter because that would, we get really cold in the wintertime. So I take cuttings from Calibrachoa and begonia that I have been doing for years and years for my own personal use, and I figured why not try to have some larger petunias quicker this year and take cuttings from these. You can see I have dichondra in here and the petunias, and there was some irisine in here that did not make it in the cold. It's always good to see what can take it on really like cold. I mean, in the 20s, that's cold. That's not even cool. It's not cooler or cool-ish. It is cold. But I did take the irisine cuttings before I took the hanging baskets down. So I'm actually going to take these apart today and pot up the dichondra into its own pot and get these hangers ready for the petunias. No, not the petunia. The pansy season that's coming up before we know it. But let's do some cuttings quick and easy, and I'll show you how I do them. All right, so the tools I'm going to be using today, I have a tray. I'm obviously not going to be using this whole tray. And by the way, these cuttings are not staying in here. I'm just doing it because this is where the petunias are. I have rooting powder, okay, which I like to use the rooting powder. I got a little bowl I'm going to put the rooting powder in, and I have super sharp shears that I'm going to be using. Okay, you got to use sharp shears whenever you do any kind of cutting because you don't want to I don't want to squish the stems. I want to have a nice clean cut. All right, so I'm going to make my cuts probably about as long as my finger, and I'm going to strip off all of these leaves. Remember, any of the foliage that you leave on when you do any kind of cuttings from propagation, the plant is going to work to try to keep these hydrated. So you want to remove some foliage, and I think some of these have buds on them. If they have buds on the tip, I'm going to go ahead and trim those too. This one does not. So then, actually, I'm going to make all of my cuts real quick. I'm going to lay out all of my cuttings. All right, so this one has a lot of what looks like are going to be flower buds on it. So when I take these tips, I'm just going to cut off the top. All right, so I have 18 cuttings here. And I've stripped most of them down to just a few leaves, cut the top off when necessary. So I'm just going to take my rooting powder. Put a little bit in here. That's a lot. That's a lot. You don't really need that much. I like to use a stick to make the hole, so you don't get to water these while they're rooting, like the whole time. You can monitor to see if roots are happening by lifting up the bottom and see if roots are coming through. That's how you can know. You could also give them a little tug. I guess it would be helpful if I showed you what I'm doing down here. All right, so I'm just going to make my holes because I want to keep as much of the rooting powder on as possible. I don't want it to to be disturbed. And now I'm just going to take my cutting and I'm going to lay it this way and that way. Okay, get it all over top, and then I'm going to put it in the hole, and I'm just going to tuck, tuck, tuck. That one probably has too many leaves on it, but that's okay. I'm going to trim a few of these. So that is it. I'll have 18 plants that I didn't have before. I will be putting this with a humidity dome on the top under lights. You do not need lights. I have done this many years, just in a sunny windowsill. Oh, heat mat. Yeah, forgot to mention that part. There will be a heat mat, there will be a dome. And I will not water them. I will check to see if roots are coming out the bottom by lifting the pack. And once I see some roots, then I'll put them in their own little pot and grow them on, and it's going to be a beautiful year. So thanks for joining me today. Give me a thumbs up if you enjoyed spending time with me, and join me on the adventure in gardening. So I hope you subscribe. See you soon. So hey, before I take this tray up to the house and put it under lights, I figured I would show you the other plants that actually survived in here as well. And I kept all of them on the floor under blankets for the winter, except for the hanging baskets. I left those on the shelf. But a couple surprises, couple not surprises. On the floor are still ranunculus that are have a body showing right now, but I have checked them and they all the little tubers seem to be fine. No surprise, the teucrium that I sowed last year on 2/16, that's last year's date. The rosemary, of course, survived. I take succulent leaves and throw them in dishes, and these seem to wake up over the winter, so they'll be fine. Those are actually hardy citrus that I bought from Baker Creek last year, and I never got them in the ground. But they're kind of weird looking, right? So I'll be planting these this year and see if they truly are hardy. These are scented geraniums that I started from cutting last year. I did my own from cutting. I took one in the house and it looks fantastic. These are just starting to wake up on the tips. By the way, our nighttime temperatures are still in the 20s here, so we are nowhere near out of the woods, so I still am covering everything right now. Parma violets that I bought from Logi's a few years back, and they self-sow like crazy. So this is actually last year's plant, and I think I see a little seedling in there. Yep, lots of succulents. There's a wreath that I made last year. And you know, a lot of these things I could not just compost them. I'm like, well, let's see what happens. Like this Confederate jasmine. This was a surprise for me. And I just didn't have the room in the house. Under the blanket here, I'm not going to unwrap this right now. This is my Black Mission fig. And it seems, I can see, I'm not going to take the blanket off, but I can see the tips look fine. And if you look way down here, you can see new growth on the stem. So something I didn't show you about these hanging baskets is I have little tiny petunia seedlings and quite a few of them. Underneath the hangers are down there in pots are elephant ears that I have plenty in the house that are absolutely fine, so we'll see how the ones here have survived. Asparagus fern was a bit of a surprise for me. And this is my overflow succulent collection here. They look a little rough, they look a little cold, see the cold color there, but they also will be fine. I'll clean those up in the coming days. Surprise, look, Meyer lemons, okay, they seem to be fine. This is papyrus. I don't know if this is actually going to, it looks, you see green, but sometimes it's just frozen in place. There's another asparagus fern right there. I don't know if this is going to come back. This is, I'm gonna not say it right. Neomerica. This is something from Logies. This was like 4 feet tall, and I just didn't have the space inside. And then in the back is a Boston fern that has a little bit of growth on it. Those are the plants that have made it through the winter here down to 23 degrees.